I tried to post these videos about Hurricane Ida on TikTok, but I'm having some sort of weird issue with TikTok. Stuff isn't appearing properly, so here you go. I figured I'd post them on YouTube. This one could be really bad. That's not just hype. The way it looks right now, there's no reason to believe that this won't blow up into a huge hurricane. I just want to say a couple more things about Ida and why, as hurricanes go, it's particularly concerning. Gotta get in my car first. I'm going to pick up my kid at school. So the most intense hurricanes get to be super intense by going through a phase that's called rapid intensification or rapid deepening, where it suddenly, very quickly increases its strength. You need a number of factors in place. You need very warm water. You need, ideally, for that water to be warm at a depth as well, so it's not just a surface that's warm, but like even once the hurricane starts churning up the waters, you won't get what's called upwelling, where cold water comes up. You also need just atmospheric conditions that are really, really good for the hurricane, where you have a ridge of high pressure, upper level high pressure over the hurricane, which is of course itself a low pressure system. And you don't have wind shear, which is when you have like winds at the upper levels blowing in such a way that it interferes with the storm circulation. You don't have dry air getting entrained into the storm. And you basically just have these sort of pristine conditions for hurricane development. When that happens, and when a hurricane gets its act together, it can rapidly intensify. The fear is that with Hurricane Ida, it looks like the conditions are perfect for rapid intensification, just like they did and were with Katrina. So with Katrina, similarly, as it was getting into the Gulf, it wasn't that strong yet. It was a Category 1 hurricane after going over the Florida Peninsula. But weather nerds and meteorologists and people who know about weather were like, oh my God, this could be really bad because this could blow up very quickly. And of course it did. It's the same fear now that Ida has seemingly unlimited potential to blow up very rapidly into potentially a Category 4, maybe even a Category 5 hurricane. Hurricane Ida is crossing Cuba. Western tip of Cuba, not very mountainous, probably won't weaken it very much. Once it gets to the other side of Cuba, the computer models suggest that there is just nothing and will be nothing that would interfere with its ability to blow up into a huge monster hurricane. Now, maybe something will happen that the computer models are not seeing. Maybe we'll have a well-timed eyewall replacement cycle, but the way it looks right now, it seems like it has just unlimited potential almost. And so the fear is that the storm is going to just explode. And people in Louisiana right now might be thinking, like, if they're not paying super close attention, they might be thinking, it's just a Category 1, no big deal. And then suddenly it might be a Category 5. And so that's the concern. And it's a legitimate concern. It's important to differentiate here between hype and legitimate concern, because it is a reasonable possibility that it will potentially become catastrophic. And you have to prepare for the reasonable worst case. And if that catastrophe doesn't occur, that doesn't mean that it was hype. Sometimes weather is overhyped. But oftentimes what people misperceive with the benefit of hindsight as having been hype was actually just a reasonable forecast that didn't happen to occur. Thank goodness. And maybe that'll happen here. But there is no reason to believe that it can't become a catastrophic monster hurricane. There's nothing to suggest that is not very, very much on the table. It is very, very much on the table. It is a very reasonable, plausible possibility, and people need to prepare for it. Frankly, they need to prepare for it as if it were a certainty, because that's how you prepare for the worst. Now, is it a certainty? No, it's not. But it's also not just a small, overhyped possibility. It is a real possibility that this thing will be a real catastrophe. And so people need to get ready. It's as simple as that. I want to talk about Hurricane Ida, but because most of my TikTok followers don't know me from my old blog or Twitter or anything pre-TikTok, I need to give you a little bit of a backstory about me and hurricanes and New Orleans and like my 15 minutes of fame. Like, I used to blog about hurricanes a lot. And 16 years ago, in fact, it was on the last Friday in August in 2005, so basically like the same day as now, I wrote this blog post, which became like my most famous blog post ever. It was called New Orleans in Peril. Most notably, the line that people quoted a lot that became sort of famous was this one: "If I were in New Orleans, I would seriously consider getting the hell out of Dodge right now, just in case." My blog got picked up by a bunch of bigger blogs. I got a ton of traffic. I became like the #1 blog resource for information about Hurricane Katrina for several days. And then ultimately, it was like written up in the New York Times, also the Washington Post. I was interviewed live on MSNBC by, God help me, Tucker Carlson, who used to have a show on MSNBC and used to be like a seemingly normal human being. I mean, just totally, that's so weird in so many ways. Anyway. Last but not least, I was interviewed by Spike Lee when he was making his movie about Hurricane Katrina. He flew me out to New York, interviewed me, and I was actually like right at the very beginning of the movie, reading part of that famous blog post.
New Orleans in peril. Friday, August 26th, 2005, 1:57 p.m. At the risk of being alarmist, we could be 3 to 4 days away from an unprecedented cataclysm.
So, yeah, that happened. It was all very strange. I've never really understood why my blog got so much attention when there were plenty of other people, including more qualified people who, unlike me, are actually meteorologists, were saying the same thing at the same time. But for whatever reason, that did happen 16 years ago. And so it's in that context that I tweeted this out this morning about Hurricane Ida, once again saying, if you're in New Orleans, maybe consider getting the hell out. Because seriously, this one could be really bad. That's not just hype. It's impossible to know for sure, but the way it looks right now, there's no reason to believe that this won't blow up into a huge hurricane over the weekend. It's even conceivable that it could get up to category 4 or 5 like Katrina did. I'm not promising that. There's no way to be sure, but it is very, very seriously possible. And please remember, Katrina is not even close to the worst case scenario for New Orleans. Please take this seriously.